Hi, I'm Lisa Haisha. Welcome to the Legacy Interviews. Today I'm interviewing Sue Wong for the second time. She was so fascinating the first interview. We couldn't even touch on some of the deeper things that we wanted to discuss, because what's so magnificent about Sue is she's not just a fashion icon. Who she is goes so much deeper. She is a person who is shifting and changing the world, and she really channels all of her ideas, and she takes time out for herself, which is what I really want to share and teach everyone to do. As busy as she takes time to go to her 3 magical homes, which she calls portals, that she could really relax, renew herself, and really give back in a bigger way. Compared to what most people do is just work, and never stop because there's so much to do. But I feel that taking a time out in your life and taking that moment to really get the juices from the gods and the goddesses and take that within you and then put it out is the most beautiful, magical way to do things. And Sue Wong is about beauty, magic, and transformation. And just sitting in her gorgeous castle, I'm already feeling transformed.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's my pleasure to really be here, to really be in this intimate conversation with you. And yes, my mantra is beauty, magic, transformation. What I really create is beauty, and the beauty is alchemical, and it has the power to really transform. So I just really feel that when a woman puts on a Sue Wong gown, she is really magically connected to her feminine divine. And that's what I really do with my clothes, and the power of a Sue Wong gown has the power and the ability to really make a woman feel like a goddess.
It's true. I wear your gowns.
Thank you. Thank you.
And when I put it on, my favorite time period is also like the 20s and 30s. And I put that on and it really transports me back in time, and I feel like I'm a different being, and it actually lasts. So I'd like to talk to you about that, because when you wear another dress, it's beautiful and it's elegant, and it's just a beautiful and elegant dress.
Yes.
But what you do is you infuse your beauty, magic, transformation in it, and the next day I'm still feeling that energy.
Well,
and
thank
it
you.
shifts my creativity.
Thank you. Well, I believe in beauty, and I believe in alchemy, because beauty is, alchemy. And there's just really something magical about creation, about the creation of beauty, which I really totally immerse myself into. I'm all about beauty because I create it. I surround myself with beauty, and beauty is really sort of my portal or my doorway into the divine. It just really connects me with that divine energy. People ask me all the time, where do I get this inspiration? And I would say it just really comes from the ether. I can't really put a handle on it, but I just really sit there, when it's time to create, and all these ideas start pouring out. So I don't really know where it comes from, but I do know that it comes from a divine source.
Does that come from at nighttime, or when you're taking these trips and taking a time out for yourself?
Well, I was born an artist, so an artist is always compelled to create.
How do you create? A lot of people go out, you travel a lot, you have 3 beautiful homes. Do you take your time there to channel your new dress designs? I know you do 1,500 a year, or is it daily?
Yes, I have 3 homes, which I call body, mind, and spirit, and each one just really represents an aspect of my entire being. For instance, you're sitting here in the essential feminine corporeal body. So this is the Cedars, and it's my Hollywood glamorous historical residence. And then I have a modernistic contemporary. It's a 180-degree, difference or turnaround from the Cedars. But I have my beautiful contemporary home in Malibu, which I call Art House, spelled H-A-U-S in the German manner. And I'm a huge collector of modern art. A lot of people really think of me as this sort of romantic vintage sensibility of the Cedars, and because of what I do in my gowns. And yes, that's a huge part of who I am, because I'm sort of a hopeless romantic. And I do love the period of the 1920s and 30s because I feel that I probably had an incarnation and I lived through those times as well. But there's also this very sort of unsentimental modernist in me, and I love modern art, and in particular, I love the early 20th century modern masters, which I guess do harken back to the teens and 20s again. So they would be the early 20th century masters such as Man Ray, such as Picasso, such as Braque, such as Matisse, and some of my other favorite artists of the period, because I love German Expressionism, I love Cubism, I love the Russian constructivists, I love all of that. So, and last but not least, I have my really beautiful spiritual sanctuary located in a very remote rainforest. It's a very beautiful, pristine rainforest, you know, which is just really the absolute nature experience, which consists of beautiful green jungles and waterfalls. And so that's located on the island of Maui, and I just really love all three of my homes.
Well, how do you work then? Do you bring people to Hawaii or to Malibu, or is this the Cedars your main home, or do you entertain at all three?
Well, the Cedars is my main home only because it's really the closest proximity to my design studio corporate offices, which, believe it or not, are only 10 minutes away. And that was really, other than just being drawn to the enormity of this wonderful beauty here, I was also being practical, and I was considering the fact that it was only 10 minutes away from my work. So because I really work during the week, this is the place where I spend the most time. Malibu is sort of my weekend sanctuary, even though I've had that home for 23 years. And I used to really commute back and forth because that was my main home at one point. Then my spiritual sanctuary, unfortunately, I don't really use enough. I should really go home more often, but I go there about 3 or 4 times a year, if I'm lucky.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes,
So,
but my creative mind is always really at work. You know, when I'm in Hawaii, I'm designing beautiful, magnificent gardens because I have 3 properties there that are somewhat contiguous to each other. I have a beautiful 6.5 acre property. I have a beautiful 6.5 acre property which is adjacent to the actor Woody Harrelson. So there are a lot of renegades and rebels and sort of like outcasts living there. A lot of what I call wealthy trustafarians, you know, trust fund babies.
Yes.
You know, for instance, one of my neighbors is Susan O'Connor, whose you know, a legacy on one side of the family is all the De Beers diamond fortune, and the other side of her family are the platinum mines, so platinum marries diamond.
Oh, yes.
And then Jonathan Starr's grandfather invented neon, and then there's Ted Firestone of the Firestone fortune. So there's all kinds of really interesting but bohemian types living there, but they're all into this beautiful nature experience, and the glory of and the power of nature is just really amazingly forceful and so beautiful there that I would say the beauty is divinely transcendent.
Absolutely. But is that the home that you go to be alone?
Yes.
More than bringing people there?
Yes, for the most part, I really visit there alone. Once in a while, I will bring a guest, a special guest, or a companion if I'm romantically involved with somebody. But for the most part, I go home there alone, and I spend a lot of time by myself there. I do have a couple who are my caretakers who take care of the property for me, and they spoil me by cooking for me and just really taking good care of me. I feel so healthy there, and my main residence right now is on 6.5 gorgeously manicured gardens, which I really designed in the course of 15 years that I've had the property. But it's really like, you know, in the mornings, I really take this stroll. I do my garden stroll at 6 a.m. in the morning, or, you know, right at dawn.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yes.
How do you structure your days here compared to Malibu and
Yes.
there? Is it a completely different Sue Wong where you're
Yes.
in a different mode
Yes,
or frame of mind? Because I want to help other people who are watching this. How can they channel their creativity, and what do you do to keep it alive and fresh?
Well, I am, believe it or not, quite a structured person. In spite of being really a very sort of free form and fluid creative personality, the other side of me is really quite structured and very disciplined. Because, you know, I could not really run a business the size of which I have if I were not structured to a certain degree. So you could say that I'm really sort of structured in a sort of loosely, you know, free sort of way. But at the end of the day, I'm very disciplined. You know,
So if someone wants to create what you're creating, if there's a budding artist out there, fashion designer, would you say they have to have that discipline?
I would say so, yes. I mean, it's very, very difficult, I would say, walking that fine line between being creative and being practical. So there are two dimensions that I really have to dwell in. One is really being the creative artist, and the other side is being a pragmatic and practical businesswoman.
Do you think that's important today for anybody, or do you think they could be one or the other?
I think if you really want to be a successful artist, you have to be both.
Yeah, for you, like your brand is so big, that's because you really are involved on an intimate level.
Yes, I am totally involved in every single aspect of my business. From the creative to the imaging of it, all the Facebook social media posts, those are my very own posts. I do have technical people helping me post them, but every single one of them really comes from me.
I believe that because they're also heartfelt.
Yes.
And when I read them, I got to interview Sue again. That's fascinating. Let me write this down. I want to go deeper into that because you really share from your heart and your soul on Facebook, which a lot of people do not. And I think that really brings people to you. And what I find fascinating about you is some of my icons, mentors, were like Anais Nin, Simone de Beauvoir.
Oh my goodness, we have the same icons.
Really?
I love those women. I read them in my early 20s, and I went through all the diaries of Anais Nin.
Too,
and
several
of course,
times.
you know, Simone de Beauvoir, she was really an early feminist, you know, and of course she really had that great lifelong relationship with Jean-Paul Sartre.
Yes, and I read all their journals, and I started journaling daily and writing all my friends, and I think you were doing the same, or you still do. Yes,
I kept journals in my early 20s until I met my ex-husband, and I guess in a jealous rage he threw all of them in the garbage one day, so I was furious with him.
Oh my
But
God!
anyway.
Well, yeah, we're similar in that where my mother threw out all my journals from high school because she said you never want to write anything down because someone will blackmail you. I'm like, oh, that was all my high school with all my friends, and she's like, yeah,
I know. So I think the best thing to do is just really keep it all in your heart, and
But there's something about journaling. I think that helps one capture their ideas and putting it on paper, especially to somebody else.
Yes,
because you speak as a soul-to-soul friend, even compared to speaking just to yourself, journaling.
Yes.
And that's what you do on Facebook. And I'm reading your Facebook post, and I'm being transformed. I'm going, oh my God, she's doing beauty, magic, and transformation in a post. How cool is that?
Thank you. Well, I've had such a transformative and magical life. I mean, it's really been quite the journey, you know, fraught with a lot of challenges and hardships.
I want to talk about that because someone like you started off with hardships.
Yes.
Growing up in China.
Yes, I grew up, I was born into revolution and change and terror in mainland China. Do you have a strong memory of those days? Yes, I do. I remember riding on my mother's back, you know, as a 2-year-old, perhaps, and attending the people's trials where they were really persecuted and executed in front of my very eyes. So as a child, you do not really forget those memories.
How has that correlated to your work? Did you use some of that?
Yes, I was always born an artist, and I remember, you know, one of the earliest memories as a 3-year-old is receiving this magical bottle of beads, colorful, iridescent, luminescent beads from my maternal grandmother, and that was just the most magical thing that I ever remembered. And I just really think that it's somewhat sweet, sort of a sweet irony that today I'm sort of known as the Queen of Beads because I use a lot of hand beadwork as part of my couture flourishes and embellishments for the work that I do in fashion today.
But when you received those beads as a little girl, can you remember what you were
Yes.
thinking at that moment?
I was ecstatic. I was just really mesmerized by their beauty because they were all glass beads and they were really iridescent.
And was this because it was a contrast to what was going on at
Yes,
that time?
Exactly. It was starvation and turmoil and scarcity. I mean, you know, I can tell you stories, but, you know, starvation was rampant. There was really a lack of food. My mother would really go out into the fields where she was really allotted the job of cutting firewood because, you know, that was really a source of energy. And she would really trap field mice as a source for food for dinner. And how about my little grandmother, whom I was so attached to? She was 83 years old, and she would really try to trap rats and mice around the house just so that I would have some protein for dinner. So that's the level of scarcity that I came from, and very few people understand that. They really walk into the opulence of this house and they think that I've always had this. But everything that I have, Lisa, is really completely hard-won, and it's all really completely self-made. I did not inherit this. I was not given this or gifted this. I did not steal it from anybody. I really created all of this, and I really made it for myself, and I'm very proud of that fact, and that's why I really remain so independent as a woman. I never really depended on a man for my keep or anything like that. I think I've been accorded the biggest honor that any artist can ever have, and that is to really make a great living from creating my art. And that is the highest honor to be bestowed on an artist.
Absolutely, and congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
That is so hard to come by. That's why I want to help other people really attain something in their life besides drudgery. I want them to really go deep inside and figure what is their life purpose and how can they leave a legacy behind. So I think what would be helpful is if you shared maybe 3 moments in your life that were life-changing, maybe from childhood, teen, and adult, that really helped shift you and
Yes, okay.
or have access to that consciousness of.
All right. I was always born an artist, and I knew it as a very, very.
How did you know?
I just knew it as a child immediately. I remember having come here to America for the first time. I met my father because he had escaped the communists and fled and came back before I was born. And then thereafter, you know, China had really closed its doors. My mother and I were trapped there. So I guess the first transformative moment was really coming to this country. And my life would have been incredibly different had I just really not escaped with my mother, who sewed her wedding jewelry into this little pillow. And I guess my father and the relatives had really plotted our escape. And she handed it to the border guard, and so he released me and my mother to free Hong Kong, where we were met by relatives and taken into safety. And then a year later, my father petitioned for my mother and I to really join him. And I met him for the first time when I was 6.5 years old. And he was a stranger to me, and I found myself to be a stranger in a strange land here in America. And so I guess one of the first transformative stories was this. We were living off of Skid Row in this tenement apartment building called the Paradise Apartments, which were anything but paradisical, you know. So they were cockroach infested, a dark and dingy hallway. You had to really negotiate this dark and dingy hallway just to go to the bathroom, because we didn't even have bathrooms in our little, they were no more than like single bedrooms, you know. And my mother and my father slept in an alcove with curtains behind for privacy. I slept in the little sitting area. And so I remember somebody having gifted me this box of colorful crayons. And I would really go down the hallway and appropriate, you know, little squares of toilet paper. And that was my little sketching, you know, coloring.
Your sketch pad or
yes,
whatever.
exactly.
That's wonderful.
So I, you know, was drawing, and from then on, I just really knew that I had a calling as an artist. And
did your mother see that too?
No, my parents really they never supported the, you know, artistic endeavors. They always wanted me to be something respectable and safe and predictable. They wanted me to be an accountant.
I was going to say banker or something, yes.
Exactly, or a teacher, but something, you know, very left brain, and I'm completely right brain, you know, so it really would not have been a suitable profession for me.
So if you're completely right brain, how can you manage this empire that you have?
Well,
that's a little left brain, no?
No, yes, I am left brain to that degree, but I'm just really probably the most non-mechanical person that you will ever meet. I'm very spontaneous.
So your right brain and the creativity of the right brain.
Yes.
Of really overseeing a brand through creative, like the creative
yes.
producer instead
exactly.
of the, yes.
Exactly. You know, all the nuts and bolts I'm not very good at. I really have other, you know, generals that I really marshal orders to, you know, in different departments to really run different things for me. But I'm the overseer,
yes.
you know.
So the first one is meeting your father here,
meeting
a
my
stranger
father,
in a strange
you know,
land.
meeting my father, coming to America, you know, having that magical box of crayons to really express my creativity with. I found my bliss at age 19. I always wanted to really be a fine artist, I thought. But then I got into fashion at age 16 by being elected as a representative, one of two representatives from my Culver City High School. And I was elected to be on the May Company Teen Board. And we modeled in the tea room. We worked on displays and, of course, sold on the floor and did merchandising and all of that. And so that sort of kind of shifted directions for me, especially when my parents refused to finance my fine art education. So I just really shifted my focus and went into fashion. And I enrolled in LA Trade Tech, and after a few months I left because I was offered a job for this huge company by the name of Young Edwardian by Arpegia. And so the head designer offered me a job, and I've been designing since I was 19 years old. And that's really quite a few decades ago.
Yes, that's extraordinary though, to have that opportunity at 19.
Yes, so I've found my bliss at age 19, and I've been following it ever since. So if I were to really say to, you know, somebody starting off in life, you have to really find your center, and you have to find your bliss. You have to find your point of bliss, and then just really focus on that and follow it, as Joseph Campbell said.
Follow your bliss.
He said, follow your bliss.
Yeah, but how can someone do that? So you had this opportunity, and I don't think at that age you were creative enough or savvy enough, perhaps, maybe I'm wrong, to really manipulate a situation like that where you could have an opportunity like that, because that's very challenging.
I think if you focus on, I think if one focuses on one's bliss and one has the tenacity to stay with it, one can manifest one's dreams, because that's what I did. So I've had the courage to follow my bliss, to stay with following that, and therefore today and all along, I'm living my dreams. So it is possible, but you have to really have the conviction and the courage to follow through, which a lot of people don't, because their energy disperses after a while. They can't really stand the hardships.
Yes,
and
responsibility.
the responsibility. It takes focus to really manifest the vision.
A lot of sacrifices of just going out and hanging out with friends for hours a day.
So many sacrifices. I mean, you know, there's the Aesop fable of the grasshopper and the ant. You know, some of my other artist friends were so playful, and they were really like the playful grasshopper to just really hop along from party to vacation to more parties, and I was the ant, always laboring away, always working. But, you know, on the other hand, for the most part, when it comes to my creative work, I don't really consider that to be work. I'm in my sandbox playing, and I'm having a great time.
And that is what everyone needs to hear.
Yes.
And it's just the same. There's an old saying also about men building temples and carrying heavy stones, and a stranger was walking by and saw two people carrying these heavy stones, and he asked the first person, how can you do this? He goes, it's awful, I'm sweating, I'm hot, and I'm hurting my back, and I just wait for the end of the day. And the other one, he has said, how about you? You're smiling so much. And he's saying, this is great, because this is just a piece of the dream.
Yes.
So it wasn't the drudgery. It was like, when I move this one, I'm going to have this gorgeous temple at the end.
Exactly.
It's not just a stone that I'm moving, it's creating beauty.
Yes. So you cannot really get lost, you know, along the way.
Right.
You just really have to kind of focus on your vision and what you want the outcome to be.
All those phone calls, rejection letters, the team, this person not working out, being stolen from, people deceiving you, all that's the stone. Okay, that's part of the building.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm not deterred by any of it. I just really realize that whatever hardships I go through, whatever losses I have in life, it's really par for the course, and they're all lessons as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
They're all valuable lessons. You know, if it's in my life, you know, I must have needed that lesson.
It's a lesson.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so everything is really a stepping stone to the final goal.
Instead of letting it demolish you and say, I can't go on, I was cheated, I was hurt, I was deceived, or it's too hard.
I think most people really get stuck in that.
Yes.
And then they really can't move on to really manifest their vision.
Can you give us one secret that you do if someone's stuck or they feel themselves getting off? I mean, I don't know if you meditate or what someone can do to every day stay on focus and on purpose?
I would say they need to really practice a sense of detachment. And that really, you know, the detachment doesn't really mean that you don't care. The detachment means that you just don't let the arrows that are being pointed at you really destroy you. You either deflect them and cast them aside as they're really coming at you, but if they really strike you, you let it go through you instead of really letting the poison and the toxicity lodge there to really destroy you. And a lot of people really wallow in their sorrow, in their grief, in their loss, in their adversities, and they can't move on. They get stuck there. And that's what that stuck arrow is all about.
Okay.
And I just really, you know, you have to really, I guess, learn detachment and understand the power of transcendence.
Okay, so with detachment, how can one, when you're saying they need to learn how to detach, how can they detach? What's one tool?
I would say you just really look at the overall value. You don't get lost in the details along the way.
So you're just saying stay focused on the dream, stay focused on what you want.
Yes, exactly, and don't let anything deter you.
Yes.
Because, you know, a lot of people just, like I said, they get stuck and then they lose focus on their dreams and on their visions. And I just, no matter what, I take everything with a great sense of equanimity because I know what the greater picture of me is all about.
Beautiful.
And I just refuse to really get destroyed by other people's, you know, terrible negative agendas, or, you know, what it is that they want to appropriate from me, which happens a lot.
Of course it does.
So at age 25, I had really realized the American dream through basically hard work and my focus, and I became this wunderkind success, making the equivalent of millions of dollars a year, living the jet set lifestyle.
What did that feel like? Did you have that image when you were young?
Well, it just came to me. I mean, all of a sudden, you know, I had brought this company from $3 to $52 million in a 3-year period, and we're really talking about decades ago. So I would say $50-something million back in those days is the equivalent of $500 million today. So I was making the equivalent of probably $100 million a year in profit for my boss. So needless to say, he treated me so well. I got to really go on vacation 5 times a year, first class, to any spot or destination on the planet that I wanted with my family. I drove a top-of-the-line Mercedes. I had 2 side-by-side mansions on Point Dume in Malibu and the most prestigious, beautiful street, Cliffside Drive. I was flying back and forth on the Concorde to London and Paris and going shopping and wearing designer clothes. I mean, I was on top of the world, you know. And so I had all of that by the time I was 25, critical acclaim and everything else. At age 30, I was going through a very, very difficult dissolution of my marriage. I had 2 young babies, and all of a sudden, you know, he took half of everything that I earned. I had 4 homes at that time. My first home that I bought in the Hollywood Hills by the time I was 21 years old, the 2 homes in Malibu, and a oceanfront home right in the middle of Hana Bay in Hawaii on the island of Maui, not too far from, you know, my places in Kipahulu right now on East Maui as well. So I was on the top of the world, and, you know, so I gave my husband half of everything. The other half I invested very disastrously in my first business because I was just a designer, not a businesswoman. I didn't know the difference between a cutting ticket to a picking ticket. And with all of that lack of knowledge, I went into business. Con artists took a hold of me. Within 1 year, all of my money had disappeared. I found myself to be 30, going through my first Saturn return, and then losing everything. And so that was really my, you know, first phoenix going down, you know, burning all the way to the ground. You know, I had 4 homes on top of the world, top of the, you know, peak or the pinnacle, and I plunged all the way down to the abyss of the valley. So that was an incredibly humbling experience. And so basically, from rags to riches, back to rags, basically. So that was a
What did
transformation.
you learn in that moment?
I learned humility because, you know,
Did you lose a lot of friends?
I didn't have any friends. I had to really start all over again. And this is really my 3rd phoenix rising, but I'll really, you know, I'll digress and go backwards in time a little bit. So in my youthful arrogance, I thought I would really gain everything back in 2 minutes. And the long climb became 20 years before I would really hit my second enormous wave of success, which really manifested these 3 beautiful homes, body, mind, and spirit. And I founded this evening wear line on a fluke, basically. And I had never designed evening wear in my entire life. And the year was 1999. I had designed these 5 gowns through this agent who was really a ripoff. And so I took these gowns to really find, you know, a manufacturer for them. And I had a copy of each one of those gowns in my tote bag. And wouldn't you know, the first factory that I was set up with, I saw every single one of my gowns hanging in that factory. And so the year was 1999, July of 1999. I remembered having my little mother with me because we had just really lost my father earlier that year. And so I took her with me to first to Tokyo, then to Hong Kong. And since she knew the language, I was able to leave her to her own devices, you know, to visit relatives or to walk around and shop. And I worked like the devil, you know. So I said to myself, it's 1999, the millennium is coming in a few months, and every woman is going to really want to have a dressy dress. So on the spot, I designed 25 dresses after I was connected with 3 dressy factories. The samples came in 1 month later, and they were just magical and gorgeous, very similar to what I really designed today, but that was what, 15, 16 years ago. And I received the samples, marketed in time for the August market, and they sold like hotcakes. I was able to really ship them for the month of November. They hit the stores right before the millennium, and bingo, every single one of them walked out of the store, flew out of the stores. And so a new business was born, and that's the business that I have today. And then I would say there's 4 transformative moments, so I have to really share this with you. So then I finally made it, you know, successful and wealthy beyond my wildest dreams. The money started pouring in for nonstop for almost 8 years as to make up for lost time. And then, you know, my partner, whom I trusted for 24 years.
Business partner.
My
or marriage?
Personal, and we were not married, but you know,
yes,
it was like a marriage nevertheless. He was involved in the business with me as well, even though it was all my money that was invested in the business. And his job was supposed to have looked after the money and made it grow, while I really made the money through the magic of my work. Anyway, I entrusted him with everything. He scattered everything to the wind, stole everything, and then ran off with my brother's widow as my reward. So anyway, I would say they deserve each other. So, you know, was I really destroyed by it? No, it was really a fantastic opportunity to reinvent myself, to really, you know,
and what age are you now, or how long was that?
Well,
so rags to riches to rags to riches to...
No, I would say the gods are much more gentle on me the second time. So probably only half of my wealth, you know, was taken away, or maybe less than half. But I still am intact. You know, that was my second Saturn return. If you know anything about the Saturn returns.
I'm in Jupiter now.
Yes, I think I'm in big time Jupiter because, you know, this is a time of reinvention for myself. It's a metamorphosis. It's the phoenix rising out of the ashes, and this is my 3rd phoenix rising. And I think this 3rd chapter of my life is the most amazing, the most magical, the most vibrant and radiant chapter of all, because I'm really continuing to live this vibrant life. And actually, after my partner left, I became the person again. I got reacquainted with who I am, because during those years with him, since, you know, we talk about female oppression and that sort of thing, but, you know, he was a very oppressive energy. And during those years with him, I was not really quite myself. But now everything is all brought out again, and I'm totally liberated. And I am just really living this really wonderful life. And I'm just really thrilled and happy and hopeful.
That's so inspiring to women everywhere.
Yes.
Life doesn't end at 50 or 40.
No, it doesn't.
Life is over. You don't have the opportunities I had when I was a child or when I was in my 20s or 30s.
No, I think,
it's
you know,
beautiful.
if you continue to really be plugged in to the cosmos.
Yes, and plugged in. Talk a little bit about the vortexes. We only have like 20 minutes left. I'd love to talk, first of all, define Saturn return for people who don't know it, and then talk about the vortexes and how you channel your energy. And
okay, well, you know, the Saturn cycle it occurs every 30 years. My first Saturn cycle occurred during my divorce at age 30. What happens is that the entire pillars that are upholding your life, they start to collapse one by one like a house of cards until everything collapses in your life and everything is thrown up, all the fragments are thrown up into the air to be rearranged in this sort of configuration or pattern that you never knew before, you know? So all of a sudden, you know, life is a big mystery waiting to be rediscovered.
yes,
again.
and the bigger you are, the further you fall. I mean,
Exactly,
it's like
exactly. In my case, you know, my house burnt down completely to the ground the first time. The second time, the gods were a little bit more kind and gentle to me. So my house did not burn down, you know, it's a little dilapidated and it needs to be, it's in disrepair. It needs a paint job, needs a roof job, that sort of thing. But the foundation is strong because I've spent a whole lifetime building this very strong, magnificent home, you know. So, and also Saturn is a huge, great teacher. And, you know, he's a heavy-handed teacher. So be prepared for all kinds of pitfalls and all kinds of treachery. But if you are a strong and wise person, you will take those lessons and you will just really integrate them into your life as wisdom lived. And that's what I did. And that's why I survived it all.
Do you follow astrology and tarot cards, that kind of thing daily, or?
Not formally, but I believe in all of that stuff as, not formally on a daily basis do I follow astrology, but I do believe in astrology as an ancient science, you know, and it's a system. I mean, if you just really stop, to really think and ponder, you know, the moon as a celestial body that is really closest to the earth. So when the full moon happens, people do all kinds of crazy things. And the word lunatic really comes from the moon, the full moon. And then, you know, when it also, you know, affects the tides, you know, the ebb and the flow of the tides, and it really affects us emotionally because, you know, we as a body consist of a lot of water and fluid. So just really the gravity and the pull of the moon really affects us. So why not the configuration of the other heavenly bodies?
I believe that.
It makes sense to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So talk a little bit about vortexes.
I believe that I myself create a vortex that really sort of engulfs me wherever I go. But I also believe that every single one of my homes is a vortex. This is a great vortex of energy here. And as a matter of fact, I had one energy worker who walked into this house and he said, the reason why so many famous people have lived here and powerfully creative people have always been drawn to this house, because I don't know whether you know of some of the inhabitants.
Yes.
I don't know whether you know of some of the inhabitants, but anybody from Howard Hughes to Jimi Hendrix to Norma Talmadge and Joe Schenck, her husband.
Wasn't even Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp lived here. Norma Talmadge and her husband Joe Schenck lived here, and Joe Schenck not only founded 20th Century Fox Studios, but along with his wife Norma Talmadge, Charlie Chaplin, and their good friends Mary Pickford and Sir Douglas Fairbanks, they also founded United Artists Studios. And then you had Johnny Depp living here because Bela Lugosi lived here, and he was really trying to really vibe in on Bela Lugosi for the Ed Wood stories by Tim Burton.
Yes.
Then in the 60s, it became an iconic rock palace with Jimi Hendrix, Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground, Van Morrison, Bob Dylan, Dennis Hopper filmed part of his iconic movie Easy Rider here. So there's a scene of Peter Fonda leaning over the fireplace in the library, and then they filmed the whole bordello scene in this grand ballroom that we're sitting in. And, the artist Ed Ruscha lived in my guest house. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, so all these were game changers in art and music.
Yes.
And now you are in fashion. So
I think I'm just really honored to really be included in the creative legacy of the energy of this house. And so this energy worker walked in and he said, this is a major power point of this house being on this hill. And that's why so many famous people are really drawn here. So from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s to now, they're all still coming to this house. You've been to my soirees. I have lots of really famous people in terms of celebrities and movers and shakers in the world, in the worlds of fashion, art, dance, music, film, entertainment. They all come to my parties.
Yes.
So it's the energy of the house.
Every person is phenomenal.
Yes, and also I must really say that there are spirits, living here. I always tell people that I live with a lot of famous ghosts.
So tell me about that. Do you speak to these ghosts? Do you channel them? How did they manifest?
I'm the type that feels them. I always can feel spirits because I have this sort of tingling sensation when, they're around me or they're next to me. However, I don't see them, which is just as well.
Yes, yes.
But anyway, I'm not afraid of them,
Do you know who it is? I mean, can you sense the energy if it's a musician or artist, and do you channel that and maybe put it in your designs or say, oh, this is a time where I'm supposed to be
No, I just know that they're creative people. Sometimes they're a little mischievous. But, what was it? I think just 2 weekends ago, I mean, my mother is not well. She's, like on the wane and probably on her way out because her life force is ebbing. So she was almost ready to check out when I really, called upon this Qigong master. He's a very famous Qigong master, Bruce Sun. So afterwards, after he worked on my mother, who miraculously,
healed?
Yes, she miraculously healed after his energy work on her. He came over here, and the first thing he said, as he walked through the doors is, "Hello, everyone."
I love that.
And then I just saw every hair on his arms. He was wearing a t-shirt, so I saw his bare arms. Every hair was standing up and goose pimples everywhere. And he says that always happens when the spirits are near, and they're always, coming at him because they're drawn by his light. So, he knows that there are spirits here, but they don't bother me. I choose to really
befriend them.
I choose to see them as my allies. And when people ask me, is this house haunted? I would prefer to say, it is not haunted, it is enchanted.
Love that. Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about symbolism, because you have this beautiful portrait of you over there.
Yes.
And I know you're into symbolism.
Well, I'm into symbolism because I'm very Jungian. I've been really doing Jungian work for about 15 years. And it really has completely changed and transformed my psyche and the way I look at things.
And your dreams? He's really big on dreams and symbolism.
Yes, dreams and the symbols, the symbolism of occurrences in our lives. So I always really, look for the deeper meaning to life, because once I really read somewhere, life is really not necessarily about the pursuit or finding happiness. It's really about the pursuit of the meaning of life.
Yes.
And what does it really mean ultimately? Have we, at the end of the day, I think, it's what really matters is really the kind of life that we've lived, the quality of the life that we've lived, how we have helped others along our life path, and how we have loved. So how we have lived, how we have loved.
And you said something in our last interview when you said, we humans come to Earth for 4 primary reasons.
Oh yes, a master, a Taoist and Feng Shui and Tai Chi master that lived behind me, this very mysterious, wizened little man who just really sort of mystically appeared in my life. In the very, very rugged hills above me, he lived. He just suddenly appeared into my life. His name was Master Alfred Huang, and he wrote the new definitive translation of the I Ching, by the way. He was a dean of Shanghai University, and during the Cultural Revolution, he was imprisoned for 22 years. So he gave me the 4 big purposes of life. The first one is to heal ourselves, because most of us are the walking wounded. Mm-hmm. Most of us are clueless as to where we hurt, why we act out against ourselves, against others around us, and why we are spreading our unhappiness, because mostly is because we are unconscious.
Yes.
And unenlightened.
And usually when you're mean or lash out, you're doing it to yourself.
Yes, or others.
I'm saying you don't like yourself, or you're mad at yourself, so you start projecting it.
Yes, exactly. That's true. So healing ourselves and having a good understanding of ourselves is very, very important. And then the second one is really paying the karmic debt. Because no matter how we think we can really get away with things, we get away with nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely.
There is a list, some people say it's recorded in the Akashic records, basically in the ether, of all of our good deeds or, bad deeds, our list of credits and debits, but everything is tabulated, and in the end, we get away with nothing. We really have to really pay back where we took, and vice versa.
Yes.
So the third one is learning.
Uh-huh.
We can never really learn too much in life. I mean, I really feel that, since about 2/3 of my life is really gone now, unless I live to be 150 by some miraculous degree. I do have a big life force. Yes. But anyway, I just really feel like there's, you can never learn enough. There's always new things to learn.
Yes.
From books, which is really book knowledge.
Absolutely.
But also, in terms of wisdom, which is the wisdom that really comes from within ourselves.
Yes, experiential and being alone and just listening to your
higher self.
Higher self, yes.
Yes.
We only have about 3 minutes left. So what's the fourth? And then what do you want your legacy to be?
Okay. So. The fourth is really contribution. Mm-hmm. How can we contribute to the world being a better place? So that leads me to my legacy question. What is Sue Wong going to really be leaving behind?
Yes.
And I would say beauty.
Ah, love that, love that.
Beauty is what I really
in all areas.
In all areas,
it's not just saying look pretty, it's beauty in everything, the manicured lawns, your home, your surroundings, your friendships, your heart.
Yes, yes.
Life.
My heart, my soul, which really is manifested into physical beauty. And I want to really be able to realize my dream of my beautiful chimera influence temple palaces on my 35 oceanfront acres in Hawaii. Yes. So I can really build that dream and build a more lasting legacy that can last a few hundred years, so that other people can really enjoy my work and my contribution of beauty for this planet long after I'm gone.
Mm-hmm. I better get to work. Behind you, but very inspiring.
Thank you.
And we just have a couple of minutes left. I'd love for you to talk about the symbolism in your painting and get a shot of you over there.
This portrait was done by artist Jamie Odgers, whose work I really have supported and collected for 22 and a half years. So I had just really come from Vienna, where I saw all the gorgeous Gustav Klimt. And I think the most magical painting that I really experienced in person was The Kiss. I mean, talk about a magical, energetic piece of beautiful art. So I said to Jamie, I need something to anchor the foyer with. I need a huge piece. And I think we should do something that should be a homage to Gustav Klimt, because I love his work and it would fit in with the look of the house and the environment. So he started to sketch And all of a sudden he decided that it should be a portrait of me. But I said, Jamie, this is going to be an enormous piece, and people are going to think that I'm some sort of egomaniac. When they walk in, they're greeted by this painting. And he said, oh, you know, people, wealthy people, aristocrats throughout the ages have always had their portraits done. And besides, we talked about doing a portrait for over 20 years, and it never happened. So this is going to be your portrait. So that's what it turned out to be. So there's a lot of Jungian symbolism embedded in this portrait. And for instance, I'm standing in a body of water, which represents the subconscious mind, or, you know, water represents the conscious element in all of us. And then he has me posed, you know, with my fingers like this. I can't do it because of the rings, but it's you know, it's a typical Renaissance, it's a typical aristocratic pose from the Renaissance. And then above me are the Egyptian eyes of Horus, and they're the all-seeing eyes, or the eyes of wisdom, because Horus was the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom. And above that are two spheres, which really represent, they represent yin and yang in the Asian tradition. So the golden sphere is the masculine principle. The blue sphere is the lunar aspect, which represents the feminine, and all of us are both masculine and feminine, as you know, because, you know, I'm very feminine, but I'm also a, you know, warrior goddess. And then to the side are two sets of lovers, inside world or internal world, external world. Above the heads of the two lovers are two trees, the tree of life, the tree of knowledge, with new growth represented by the green leaves.
Yes.
And then you have all these spirals, which are really the coils of the infinite. And
beautiful.
So that's my portrait.
So can you tell me a little bit about your archetypes? Who do you consider is your archetype? Which goddess?
Yes, I'm very much into archetypes because, as I mentioned, you know, that's really part of the whole Jungian journey that I'm really on. And I actually have three archetypes that I follow as goddesses. And as you know, goddesses really represent basically aspects of our higher selves and what we really aspire to be. But the first archetype goddess that I really pay homage to on a daily basis, and I bow to her temple every single day when I enter into my studio, is the goddess Aphrodite.
Oh.
And she is the goddess of love, beauty, and in the Eastern tradition, she's known as White Tara or Kuan Yin. She's also the goddess of, you know, compassion. So she's really my first archetypal goddess. So I would say my second goddess is Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. And she is the warrior goddess that I really also love, because that's an aspect of who I am.
It's running your business.
Yes. She is what really propels me into the world for achievement, towards achievement, towards success, and just really being in the world, period. And then the third goddess is the goddess Athena, and she is depicted with a, you know, scar on her arm. And Angeles Arian, another teacher in the Bay Area, said we're all members of the Scar clan. And basically through our wounds is really how we really learn our lessons and really evolve into really, you know, higher levels along our journey. So you can have great wealth, you can have beauty in your life, you can be a great artist, but if none of that is really attached with wisdom, I feel that you are poor and you have nothing.
You have nothing.
It's all empty and it's all for naught. So I'm a creator of beauty. What I really create is beauty. I am a doer and an achiever in the world, and what I aspire towards is wisdom. And that's basically who I am, and those are my important archetypes that really guide my life and give me inspiration.
Amen to that. I want to
you.
inspire everybody out there to find their goddess or god to help inspire them to get to the higher level, because that's ultimately who we are.
Absolutely.
And we play small based on what happened to us as kids, or our background, or the arrows you were talking about.
Yes, so I would say be big,
yes,
and live your dreams.
Yes, aspire and evoke that energy in you and become it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you do it every morning and bow to it. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Bring it in.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll take it. I'll take some of that one here. Thank you so much, Sue.
Oh,
it's
you're
always
welcome.
a pleasure. I
You're
mean,
welcome.
I didn't even talk to you about love yet. I mean, that's going to be an hour. So we'll do that in the Malibu home, your mind home.
Yes, that'll be the third interview.
Yeah, it'll be a nice contradiction, the love in the mind home.
Yes, that's going to be, well, I do have German men as part of my karma, so
Yes, okay.
maybe that's really been my mistake.
Yes, we'll talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe I'll give you a little soul blazing in that one.
Great.
With the work I do to bring us, yes. So
Okay,
thank you
great.
so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome.